तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर् भगवतोस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये माता पिता युवतयस्तनया विभूतिः सर्वं यदेव नियमेन मदन्वयानाम् आद्यस्य नः कुलपतेर्वकुलाभिरामं श्रीमत्तदङ्घ्रियुगलं प्रणमामि मूर्ध्ना भूतं सरश्च महदाह्वय भट्टनाथ श्रीभक्तिसार कुलशेखर योगिवाहान् भक्ताङ्घ्रिरेणु परकाल यतीन्द्रमिश्रान् श्रीमत्पराङ्कुशमुनिं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम्। कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविता शाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकि कोकिलं। वाल्मीकिर्मुनिसिंहस्य कवितावनचारिणः शृण्वन् रामकथानादं कुनयाति परां गतिं। वेदवेदे परे पुंसि जाते दशरथात्मजे वेदः प्राचेतसादासीत् साक्षात् रामायणात्मना। अंजनानन्दनं वीरं जानकी शोकनाशनं कपीशम् अक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लङ्का भयङ्करं मनोजवं मारुततुल्यवेगं जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शिरसा नमामि। आञ्जनेयमदिपाठलाननं काञ्चनाधिकमनीयविग्रहं पारिजाततरुमूलवासिनं भावयामि पवमाननन्दनं। यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारि परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकम्। Namaskars to the Astikas who have gathered at the beautiful premises of Sri Shiva Vishnu Temple. This is day 2 of Srimad Ramayana Navaham. In the Purva Charitram, we had the opportunity to understand the circumstances that led to the Lord's avataram, the process of Him descending on this mundane earth, Leela Vibhuti, to be born as Sri Rama. We did speak about how Valmiki was blessed by Narada's presence and later by Brahma's presence, and what was that which led him to be composing Srimad Ramayana. In Balakandam, we are going to today witness another milestone in Rama's life, which is Sri Sita Kalyanam. Rama was at the age of 12. That is when the father was worried. Why is my son not yet married? That is when the shlokam comes. Atharaja dasharathaha tesham darakriyam prati chintayamasa dharmatma sopadhyayaha sabandhavaha. While he was worried as to why my son is not married, just then he received the information that Vishwamitra had come to Ayodhya. Ayodhye aparajiteti vidita nakamparena sthita is a famous saying from Parashara Bhatta's work called as Sri Rangarajastamam. Ayodhye aparajiteti vidita nakamparena sthita. So it is believed that Ayodhya was a pilot model of how Sri Vaikuntham will be. So whatever names were of Sri Vaikuntham are shared with Ayodhya as well. So Vaikuntham is also referred to as Ayodhya in our Vedic scriptures. Ayodhya, in fact, that capital of Kosala province of Ayodhya, that particular administrative region was called Saketapuri. Many places in many kritis, they refer to Ayodhya as Saketapuri, and Rama himself is called Saketa Rama. Saketa nagare nivasantam samrajya prada Hanumantam rakendu vadanam bhagavantam ramaniya kalyana gunavantam Kakutstam Dhimantam Kakutstam Dhimantam Kamalaksham Shrimantam Nageshanudamanantam Naraguru Haviharantam Ramachandram Saketa Nagare. So while Vishwamitra arrived in Saketapuri or Ayodhya, all of them stood from their seats because wherever Vishwamitra go, there will be a controversy. They thought, why is he coming here? That is when Dasharatha promises Vishwamitra. The moment Vishwamitra arrives, he says, whatever you want, I will fulfill that promise for you. There was one of the most respected men in the English language who was born in the Madras Presidency. He was called the silver-tongued man, and he was called Right Honorable B.S. Srinivasa Shastri. His lectures at the Madras Sanskrit College has been compiled as the lectures on Ramayana by B.S. Shastri. He remarks, Dasharatha was a king who used to promise in haste and repent in leisure. So here goes the saying, the shlokam. Bruhi yat prarthitam tubhyam karyamagamanam prati ichhamyam anugrihitoham tvadartham parivriddhaye karyasya na vimarsham cha gantumarhasi suvrata. What do you want? I will accomplish that for you. That very moment, Vishwamitra said, Swaputram Rajashardula Ramam Satyaparakramam Kakapaksha Dharam Veeram Jeshtham Meda Tumarhasi. Since you have asked, Dasharatha, I cannot not give you the opportunity to grace what I want. Kakapaksha Dharam Veeram. I want your son, the eldest son of yours, who has got Kakapaksham, to be given to me. So this is called a Viseshanam. He is giving an adjective to the son. He could have just said eldest of the sons. The eldest will be only one, right? But why did he have to say Kakapaksham? The commentator Govindaraja in his commentary called Bhushanam asks, what is Kakapaksham? Kakapaksha Dharam. Who is this Kakapaksha Dharam? Rama. Why is he called Kakapaksham? So when one combs his or her hair, after combing there is a process. I don't know if it's something which is contemporary today or if it has been, we have bequeathed that from our ancestors. There is one little strand after combing well that you take it to the front and let it. It will come in front of your eyes. And then it has to be curved. It has to get curly in nature and then you leave it to the side. So that is, it feels like it is an attachment to the hair, but it is curly in nature. So that which stands near the temple locks and is curly in nature and feels as if it is not a part of your hair and looks like an attachment is called Kakapaksham in Sanskrit. So the commentator states in the commentary that it was the fashion in those days, and Rama was such a fashionista that he would adhere to that fashion trend of that time. So that was called Kakapaksham. So Vishwamitra wanted to remind that your son may be obedient, he may be adhering to all those that you say as a father, but he is still a person who lives with the fashion trend of today. So Kakapaksha Dharam Veeram Jeshtham Me Datumarhasi. Give me that eldest son of yours who has got Kakapaksham, Swaputram Rajashardulam. After that he also states, Aham Vedmi Mahatmanam Ramam Satya Parakramam. I know, Aham Vedmi. Immediately the commentator for these two words, Aham Vedmi, Vishwamitra states, I know. For these words, I know, the commentator comments for 40 pages. What does that I know mean? He says, it seems Vishwamitra was trying to imply to the king Dasharatha, I know, Dasharatha, that your son is the one who is mentioned in the Purusha Suktam. Vedaham Yetam, Purusham Mahantam, Vedaham Vedmi. Vedaham Yetam, Yetam becomes Aham. So Vedaham Yetam becomes Aham Vedmi. I know the one who is the quintessence of Purusha Sukta is born as your son Dasharatha. You may not know that he is the supreme personality. You may not know because you have performed Putra Kama Ishti. You desired a son, you got a son. But we as sages, we perform Moksha Kama Ishti. So we know that your son is no normal son, no ordinary son. You may be interested in the Artham and Kamam of the Purusharthas, but as sages we are interested in the Dharmam and Moksham of the Purusharthas we know. You as a king, you may be sleeping on a beautiful bed that is made of ivory. Kuttu Valakkeriya Kottukkal Kattil Mel Mettenda Panja Shayanathin Meleri, says the mystic poetess Andal. You may be enjoying and be a recipient of all the comforts that this life has to offer. But we as sages sleep on the ground that is filled with thorns and with sharp stones. We know that your son is no ordinary man. Aham Vedmi. You may be having the bow and the quiver of arrows in your hand. You may not know. We hold the bunch of darbha grass and the kamandalam with Ganga Jalam in our hands. We know. Aham Vedmi. Aham Vedmi Mahatmanam Ramam Satya Parakramam Kagapaksha Dharam Veeram Jeshtham Me Datu Varasi. That very second he said, Dasharatha fainted. BP came to about 90 by 60 or something. That is when they brought some waters and sprinkled on his face and said, Dasharatha, get up. Dasharatha said, Vishwamitra, had you asked for me, I would have volunteered. But you have asked for my Atma. Because when we describe Vyasa, how do we say Vyasam? Vasishtha Naptaram. Napta means great grandson. Naptaram, he is Vasishtha's great grandson. Shaktev Pautram, he is the grandson of Shakti. Parasharatmajam, he is Parashara's Atmajam. What does Atmajam mean? Son. We should say Putram, right? We say Atmajam because Vedam states Angadangat Sambhavasi Hridayat Adhijayase Atma Vai Putranamasi. The father is born again as a son or daughter. So they are referred to as Atmajam. So you have asked for my Atma. How can I give my son who is my Atma? Then he has to substantiate his claim. He states, Una Shodasha Varsho Me Ramo Rajiva Lochanaha Na Yuddha Yogyatamyasya Pashyami Saharakshasaihi. My son is not of the age, even of the age of 16. Una Shodasha Varshaha. See, generally if I ask, there was once this trend, right? You should not ask somebody's age, you should not ask somebody's salary. Everybody wants to remain on this earth. They want to prove that they are 16. There is no harm in asking somebody's age. Well, if I go and ask somebody's age, they should either tell their age or they should deny. I will not tell your age, or they should tell I'm 32, 42, 52. What should Dasharatha have said? He should have said, my son is 12 years of age. But he says, Una Shodasha Varsho Me. My son is not even 16 years of age. Then why does that word number 16 feature? Because amongst the Kshatriyas there was a rule that until you are 16 you should not go to the battlefield. I don't know here. In India the age for driving, minimum age is 18 years. What is it here? 18? Okay. So if somebody asks, has your son started driving? You will never say my son is 13 and a half or 14 and a half. You will say my son is not yet 18. Una Shodasha Varsho Me Ramaha, my Ram. Why should he say my Ram? Because the commentator states, Rishis will not take that possession or that object which has been smeared with that I and minus, that ahankaram and mamakaram. Whenever you give havis to Agni or any devata, you say Indraya Swaha, Indraya Idan Namama. This is not mine. Oh Indra, you take this for you. So only when you absolve yourself of that particular possession will that be taken by that particular deity or devata. So the moment Dasharatha tells, Me Ramaha, my Rama is not 16 years of age, his intent was, the moment I smear Rama with that mine, then this Rishi will not take. Una Shodasha Varsho, Me Ramaha. And the other idea was to say, hey Vishwamitra, you might have come in search of Rama, you're right, but you might have come in search of J Ram and not D Ram. Jamadagni's son Jamadagneya Rama called Parashurama is always burning with the passion to fight. So you might have come in search of J Ram. My Rama, D Rama is very obedient. He will have Tachi Mamu and go and sleep. Una Shodasha Varsho Mera Maharajiva Lochanaha. He then says, my Rama is the one who has got eyes like that of the blossoming lotus. Gambhirambha samudbhuta sumrishtanala ravikara vikasita pundari kadala amala ayatekshanaha. You should not say that the Lord's eyes are like that of a lotus, it seems. Ramanuja says, you have to describe that lotus. As soon as the fresh, early rays of the sun come and touch the buds of the lotus in a pond that has got serene, cool waters with a long stalk, and when the lotus blossoms and then the petal is untouched by the rays of the sun, and then you see the tenderness of the petal of the lotus while the flower has just blossomed, that beautiful will be the eyes of the Lord. Gambhiramba samudbhuta sumrishtanala ravikara vikasita pundari kadala amala ayate kshana. So why should he say, you are asking for my Ram who has got eyes like that of a lotus, Rajiva Lochanaha? Because Vishwamitra said, I need your son to fight the demons who are trying to prevent me from conducting yajnas, sacrifices. So you need to send your son in order to protect my yajnam. When are the demons fighting? Demons are generally nocturnal in nature. Rakshasas were nocturnal, they were called Nishacharaha. So their work will begin only after 8 p.m. Here I think the sun sets by only 9, they keep it as 9 p.m. So they will work till 5 a.m. in the morning. Whereas my Rama has got eyes like that of a lotus. Lotus blossoms at 6 a.m. and will close itself by 6 p.m. and then he'll go and sleep. So how can you call my son to fight the demons who are nocturnal in nature? Ramo Rajiva Lochanaha Na Yuddha Yogya Tamyasya. Why did he say, look at my Ram, Na Yuddha Yogya Tamyasya? The commentator states, see, my son has not even started shaving. He's such a tender face. Generally we call that as a face called Palvadiyum Mugam in Tamil. Palvadiyum Mugam Ninaidan Ullam Paravashamigavagade. Look at my son. He generally loves music. He is into concerts. You are calling him for a war. What will he come and do there? In one of the Kritis, the same Rama who became Krishna, Uttukadu Kavi tells, Arivenum Nandavana Malandama Malare Manamuhandanaru Maname Manamalaindu Magarandam Tanai Nadi Varum Pannuhanda Karuvaldenum Tingurale Kulalishaye Araveri Nadamadu Marashe Yennuire Yetanai Ketalum Podum Yenbade Illai Genipadi Ache. So the Rajagopala of Mannargudi has such beautiful melodious music flowing out of the flute. The same Krishna is the Rama of Vaduvur and he is interested in music, and you are calling my son who has got eyes like the petals of a blossoming lotus, who is not even 16 years of age, to come and fight the demons who are nocturnal in nature. Una Shodasha Varsho Me Ramaha Rajiva Lochanaha. That is when Vishwamitra intervened. Vasishtha intervened. He said, see Dasharatha, Vishwamitra and me, you know the past about the both of us. We don't see eye to eye. But I have to say one thing. If at all my student has to intern somewhere, it has to be under Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra should give a certificate, internship certificate, that Vasishtha's student is great. So you send him along. See, Vishwamitra and Vasishtha's Charitram and Charitram comes in Balakandam. I'll give you, that particular history will come later. In Mahabharatam there is a verse. In Adi Parva, in Mahabharatam, Kunti Devi, while she realizes that she cannot have children through her husband, she then invokes the blessings of Devatas. She requests Dharmaraja to come, and thereby she is bestowed with Yudhishthira. Then comes Vayudeva, who gives Bhima. Then she prays to Indra and then gets Arjuna as the Suputra. While Arjuna was born, that very moment there was a message that was circulating in most WhatsApp groups then. All the rishis in the forest, they all got to know that here is born a child who will later, they were called Dirghadarshis, they will know what will happen in the future. So since they knew what will happen in the future, what was in store in the future, they knew that this will be the boy who will be the recipient of Upanishad Jnanam called Bhagavad Gita. Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dugdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsaha Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gita Amritam Mahat. He is going to be the direct recipient of the Upanishadic knowledge from the Lord himself. So they wanted to have a glimpse of that child now. So all the rishis started coming in groups to visit this child. Generally when attendance is taken, I don't know the norm here, when attendance is taken in the class, it will be taken in the alphabetical order. So first should come Vasishtha, then should come Vishwamitra. That is the order. So Vyasa was supposed to write Vasishto, Vishwamitrascha. These were the rishis. But then while he was writing, he was reminded these two people keep fighting. As such, this work itself is Mahabharatam. And if I put these two names together, what if the names fight? So he introduced one word, Vasishto Jamadagnir Vishwamitrascha. So to prevent the fight happening between words. So this fight between the two was so popular, even during Vyasa's times. So that time Vasishtha said, Vasishtopi Mahatejaha Yeche me tapasisthitaha. Vishwamitra said, even Vasishtha will agree. Before leaving, now Vishwamitra got very angry. He said, Sukhi bhava suhrid vritaha. You promise that you will do what I want. But when I ask, you're denying it. May you live happily. Sukhi bhava suhrid vritaha. This is a beautiful way of talking. See, when two of them fight and finally one has to excuse himself or herself. What does that mean? Will you be happy? That is the implied meaning. Right? So, Sukhi bhava suhrid vritaha. While he was leaving, Vasishtha said, Dasharatha, go and stop Vishwamitra from leaving this assembly. Then he said, I will call my son Rama. Well, Rama was called, Rama came, and the father kissed him on his forehead. Saputram murdhanyupagraya raja dasharathastada dadau kushika putraya supreenenattaratmana. Why should the father kiss? Because Vedam says the father should kiss his son on the forehead. He should embrace him and kiss him. He kissed. Now he should say, Rama, go. Lakshmana was also there with him. Now the demand was only for Rama. Either you give Rama or don't give Rama. Why should Lakshmana go? The commentator states, while the body walks, will it be bereft of its shadow? Lakshmana was the very shadow to Rama. Wherever he goes, he will follow. So both of them left. Sarva priyagarastasya Ramasya api sharirataha Lakshmano Lakshmi sampannaha Bahif pranaiva paraha. So as they walked, in fact, in Tyagaraja Swami's Charitram, there is an anecdote which the great veteran Balakrishna Shastri used to state. In this little hamlet called as Panchanadi Kshetram, there used to be 5 tributaries to Kaveri. Panchanadi. Pancha in Tamil is called I. Nadi is Aru. Aiyaru is Thiruvaiyar. Panchanadi Kshetram, Tyaga Brahmam lived. He was born in Tiruvarur. In Tamil Nadu, many people were born in Tiruvarur. But he lived in Thiruvaiyar. In Panchanadi Kshetram, he was once walking by the streets of Thiruvaiyar, and then he spotted two young men following a rishi-like person. As he started chasing them, they too started running away from him. And this directed him finally to his house. As he reached his house, he immediately told his wife, see, I saw one Muni along with two young men following him. That lady said, it has become very hot these days. The summer is at its peak. What she implied was he was getting a bit dizzy in his thoughts. That is when he heard the knocking at his door. When he opened the kavatam, he saw a beautiful resplendent form of the Lord. That was like gold that was used for smelting. So as he saw the form, he started composing. That is why that kriti generally is sung with the Anupallavi first and then the Pallavi later. Balakanakamaya Chela Sujana Paripala Shri Ramalola Vidruta Sharajala Shubhada Karunalavala Ghananila Navyavana Malika Bharana. Now comes the Pallavi. Yela Nidaya Radhu Paraguje Sevela. So as the three of them walked, Parakala Nayaki, the Nayika form of Tirumangayalvar in his last work called as Tirunedun Tandagam states, Maivannan Narunkunji Kudal Pintala Magaram Sher Kudai Irubadilangiyada Eivannan Venchilaye Tunaya Iruvarai Vandar Yen Munne Nindar Kaivannam Tamarai Vai Kamalam Polum Kanninayum Aravindam Adiyum Agade Avvannattavat Nilaimayum Kandum Thodi Avarai Naam Tevar Endru Anjinome. Every language, that too classical languages, are so beautiful. Even when you listen to them, despite being oblivious of what is there as meaning in it. Well, after they walked for a certain distance, Rameti Madhuram Vanim Vishwamitro Abhyabhashata. Vishwamitra was reluctant to address this eldest of the sons Dasharatha as Rama. The next day, they were sleeping and Vishwamitra woke up by 4 a.m. Rama was still sleeping. He has to ask Rama, wake up. Kausalya, Kausalya. Whom is he waking up? Why should Kausalya come here? Kausalya, Kausalya. Why is Kausalya coming? Periyavachan Pillai, the commentator, states, Mata putrasya bhuyamsi karmanyavara bhade. There is a Shastra Vakyam that more than a father, the mother is 100 times important for a child, be it the daughter or the son. So as per Shastram, if the father asks a question and the child either doesn't answer or refuses to answer, it is still okay. I'm not saying you have to be like that. Don't quote me. But if the mother asks, you have to ask. You have to answer. When Amma says, you have to follow. That is how Tamil Nadu used to be once upon a time. Mata putrasya bhuyamsi. Andal states, Tayai kudal velakam shaida damodaranai. Matrudevo bhava, and then later comes Pitrudevo bhava. If the father is a man of no character, you can still kick him out. Says Apastamba in his sutra. Whereas if the mother is still a lady of not a great character, you have to protect her till her last breath. So to give that higher pedestal to Kaushalya, he states, Kausalya, Kausalya. Why is he singing Kausalya so many times? I don't know how many of you are fans of classical Carnatic music. After the Varnam and then the next piece, there will come another piece in the Kacheri which will have Neraval. Neraval is extracting one important line from the Sahityam of the Kriti and going around it, exhibiting the beauty of that ragam. Kapivari dhida tuna kaliki rota tutuna kapivari dhi Kapivari dhida tuna kaliki rota tutuna Kapivari dhi. A person who's a novice to the concert will wonder if the person has forgotten the next line. Aditha very maramuttar. Kapivari dhi. So similarly he did Kausalya Praja, Kausalya Supraja, Kausalya. He began at 4 a.m., 4:45. Kausalya Supraja. There is an anecdote which I remember of the great Veena maestro Balachandar. It seems he was called to the parliament of all the places to give a Veena recital. People were fighting in the parliament. He did not know what to do. He started playing the Veena and they all stood up because he was playing the national anthem. They all stood up. But he wanted to take revenge for all the bad behavior that they had showcased. So he did a Neraval. Janaganamana Adinayaka Janaganamana Adinayaka. Half an hour. They had to stand. Kausalya Supraja. Praja means son. Supraja means good son. How does he know that Rama is the good son? While sleeping especially. See, whenever you are visiting India, whichever is your task, leaving all of that, you will take one ticket to Srirangam, go visit the Lord. Early morning you will wake up, take bath, go and stand in the queue for about 1 hour and then take a 300 rupees ticket and go stand. And somebody asks you, whom are you visiting? I am visiting Ranganatha. What is he doing? Sleeping. So we take all the efforts to see the Lord who is reclining. Why? Even while he is reclining, he is so handsome. Sukha Sukta Parantapa Shriman. Is it the case with us? See, you take this as a challenge. You are sleeping. You ask somebody to take a photo of yours. You will not be able to see that picture. Forget about others. Kausalya, even while he was reclining, he was so handsome. Kausalya, Supraja, Supraja, Praja. Why did he not tell the next word? Because this name was given to this boy by Vasishtha. How will Vishwamitra use? Kausalya Supraja Rama. 4:45. Rama. Why did he say Rama then? Because Vishwamitra thought, I have never ever faced defeat with Vasishtha. Whatever it is, I've worked, I've persevered to get that Brahma Rishi title to be at par with Vasishtha. But today, I know that I have failed because there is no better Nama than Ramanamam that could be given. Kausalya Supraja Rama Purva Sandhya Pravartate. It is going to get the early hours of morning. Please wake up, Rama. Uttishta Nara Shardula, the tiger amongst men, wake up. Kartavyam Daivamanhikam. Singalipuram Anantarama Dikshita used to state. Why did he ask Rama to wake up? Kartavyam Daivamanhikam, so that the duties could be performed. Whose duties? Vishwamitra said, I have to perform my early morning ablutions. You will have to wake up. Why? Only when you wake up, every day I have been holding water in my fist, in my cup full of water, and I have been offering to Narayana, who is a Dheya Sada Savitrimandala Madhyavati, Narayana Sarasijasana Sannivishtaha, Keyuravan, Makarakundalavan, Kiriti, Hari, Hiranmaya Babu, Dhritashanka Chakraha, Sri Dwaraka, Nilayachudha, Govinda, Pundarikaksha, Rakshaman, Sharanagatam. I have been offering this as Argyam to the one who is housed in the Savitrimandalam. Hey Rama, that one who is housed in the Savitra Mandalam is today in front of me as Rama. I don't have to offer it to the sun. If you wake up, I will offer it to you, so wake up. Kartavyam Devamanhikam. Tyagaraja had a better way of waking up Rama. He says, if you tell him I have to perform Arghyam, why will he wake up? Meluko vaya mam yeluko Rama Melaina Sita Sametana Bhagyama Meluko. Only when you wake up Rama, you can be united with Sita, so wake up. He was more practical. Now, as soon as Rama woke up, Dasharatha taught him, Vishwamitra taught him, Gayatri Mahamantram, Tasya Rishehe Paramodaram, Vajashrutva Narottamo, Snatva Krutodakau Virau, Jepatuf Paramam Japam. Yesterday, if you remember, at about 3:45 p.m., I was talking about the shlokam. Madhuram, Madhuraksharam. Every aksharam in Ramayana is important. Why aksharam? Because the first letter of the first verse of every set of 1,000 verses, let's say 1 to 1,000, 1,001 to 2,000, 2,001 to 3,000, 3,001 to 4,000. If you kind of segregate the shlokas as every 1,000, extract the first letter of the first shloka of every 1,000, you put them together, you will get Gayatri Mantra. Tapaswadhyaya Niratam is the first shloka. What is the first letter? Ta. I will give you the next shloka, which comes as the 1,001th shloka. Sahatva Rakshasan Sarvan. What is the letter? Sa. What is the first letter? Ta. Second letter is Sa. Now I will give you the 2001th shloka. Vishwamitrastu Dharmatma Vi. Tat Sa Vi Turvarenyam. You will get the entire Gayatri Mantra by extracting it. So Ramanuja learnt this from his uncle, maternal uncle called as Sri Shaila Purna Bahyakshepaha Kalartaha Bhavabhayam Sadvrittam Acharyavatta Gayatri Artaha Idamuchitaparam Tattva Arthamscha Pancha Karpanyam Seshabhavaha Ghataka Vidipalam Paratantriyam Tatatat Kashthakala Pratiksha Vasadipadamiti Prahuhu Ashtadasharthan. He learnt 18 rahasyas which have been housed in the Ramayanam from his maternal uncle in a span of 1 year. Well, now he recited the Gayatri Mantram, which is Gayatrim Chandasam Mata, and that is when, as they entered the deep forest, the woods, they faced the first demoness. Her name was Tataka. Vishwamitra said, kill her. Rama said, see, this is my first battle. Should I begin by attacking the women folk? Should I begin my vadham this way? People will remember me for wrong reasons. Vishwamitra said, well, your principle is good that you should not kill women. But who told you Tataka is a woman? She has been waiting for the passers-by in the forest, especially of the pregnant women. She lets her hand into the uteruses and takes the fetus and consumes it. Do you call her a human being of any sort? After having this conversation with Vishwamitra, Rama then aims his Banam at Tataka. This killing of Tataka is brought beautifully by the Tamil poet Kamban. Solluvakkum kadiyavega chudusaram kariyashemmal alluvakkum nirathinal mel vidudalum adu vairakundrin kalluvakkum nenjir thangada appuram kalandru kalla pullarku nallor sonna porul ena poyithendre. So this Banam which emerged out of Rama's bow, interestingly, Vedam talks about Lord Shiva in Shukla Yajur Vedam through 11 Anuvakams. It is called Shatarudriyam or Shri Rudram. we have a Mangala Shlokam and then we begin. Yataishu Shivatama Shivam Babhuvate Dhanuhu. Shivam Babhuvate Dhanuhu. The one who holds, see, generally we'll associate Shiva with a Trishulam. But Rudram says the one who holds the bow, it's called Pinaki. Dasa states, Sundara Mrugadhara Pinagadhanu Karaganga Shira Gajacharma Bharadara Chandra Chuda Shiva Shankara Parvati Ramanane Ninage Namo Namo Pinagadhara. In Kirata Arjuniyam, Bharavi states, Shriyat Kuruna Madhipasya Palini Prajasu Vrittim Yamayunta Veditum Savarnalingin Vididas Samayayo Yudhishtiro Dvaitavane Vanecharaha, says Kirata Arjuniyam of Bharavi. When he had to come and bless Arjuna, he was a Kirata. Even if you go to a beautiful Shiva Kshetram in Trishur, can you tell me this beautiful Shiva Kshetram in Trishur? Endana Vadakkanada. So when you go to the Vadakkanada Kshetram, you will have a Sannidhi for Shiva as Kirata. Shiva and Rama are very, very close in many aspects. So Sri Rudram is cited for Rama as well because he holds the bow. What is his bow's name? Dandamuppette Nura Kodandapani Judara. It's called Kodandam. But you'll be surprised, Valmiki doesn't utter the name Kodandam in Ramayana. Later people have called it Kodandam and even Vedanta Deshika refers to that as Kodandam. Now Rama had a style. He inserted the arrow and he left. Like how Solluvakkum Kadiyavegas Chudusaram. At what speed did the arrow go? At the speed at which we utter words. Do we think and speak? We will utter, then we will say, I shouldn't have spoken that. Because words are faster than what you mean them to be. Solluvakkum Kadiyavega Chudusaram. At that speed it went and got inserted into her body while her body was like a piece of diamond. Vairakundrin Kalluvakkum Ninjil Tangad. Appuram Kadandru. The arrow still went, piercing her body. After getting released from her body, at what speed did it go? Kalla Pullarka Nallor Sonna Porul. If you know that this person is incorrigible, and then you call that person, despite knowing that he is incorrigible, and give him advice, at what speed your advice will go into this ear and come out of that ear? Rama's arrow went, it seems. Kalla Pullarka Nallor Sonna Porul Yana Poyittantai. Vedanta Deshika states, Jaya Jaya Mahavira Mahadhira Dhaureya Deva Sura Samara Samaya Samudita Nikhila Nirjara Nirdharita Niravadhika Mahatmya Dashavadana Damita Devata Parishad Abhyarthita Dasharathi Bhava Dinakara Kula Kamala Divakara Divishadadipati Rana Saha Charana Chatura Dasharata Charamaruna Vimochana Kosala Sutta Kumara Bhava Kanchukita Karana Kaumara Keli Gopayita Kaushika Dhvara Ranadhvara Durya Bhavya Divyasta Brindavandita Pranada Jana Vimatha Vimathana Dullalita Dorlalita Tanutara Vishika Vitadana Vigatita Vishararu Shararu Tataka Tatakeya Jadakirana Shakala Dhara Jatila Natapati Makuta Tatanatana Patu Vibuda Saridati Adiba Hula Madhugadana Lalita Bada Radina Raja Ubamridita Nija Vrjina Jagadupada Tanuruchira Paramamunivara Yuvati Nuda Kushika Sudha Katita Vidita Nava Vividha Katha. As he killed Tataka. Now, as he killed Tataka, they went further. He taught them two mantras. Balam, Atibalam Tata. It is mentioned in the Vedas that if you learn Bala and Atibala, you will never feel the fatigue. We should know those mantras. I don't know where we will get. We have to find those mantras. Generally, after 2.5 hours or sometimes even 3 hours of continuous lecture, if I finish, the audience will say, See, listening is tougher than speaking. So if we had learnt Balam and Ati Balam Tatha, we would have never found that fatigue. Now, as Rama went ahead, Rama was told various vrittantams. All three of them are walking. What will they have commonly to share? So he started giving the vrittantam of Gangotpatti, how Ganga emerged. If you want to see beautiful architecture that is a replica of what we have studied in scriptures, you have to visit Bharatadesham. Because there are so many things that you can shop. If dancers go, they'll go to Shukra jewellery. They will buy some, fine, all that is done. If you have time, go to Mahabalipuram. It's called Mamallapuram. There is one monolith of the 6th century when most nations as nations didn't exist. There was a king of the Pallavan dynasty who made a beautiful fresco in hard granite of how Gangotpatti happened. You can even now put on your Google and search Bhagiratha's Ganga's descent. If you ask Google Acharya, he will show you one picture. There will be a thin crevice between two large boulders, and it is said in the inscription that he used to have a huge water tank above and used to let the water pass between the two crevices to give a live example of how Ganga would have flown after Bhagiratha Prayatnam. 6th century, and his descendant made the world's first stone stage called the Tiger Caves for staging plays to the common people. Gange mampahi girisha shirasthite gambhira gaye sangeeta vadya priye angajata tamude asivaruna madhye akrura pujite Akhila jananamde sagara tirthamule sadguru guhalile varajanhu bale vyasadi krupale gange. So Bhagiratha Prayatnam was mentioned to him. Well, if you want to listen to Ramayanam in detail, verse by verse, it will take at least one full year. So if you have the time, go take the Moola Ramayanam and read, because he talks about how Sagara Chakravarti performed Ashwamedham. Then the 60,000 sons went in search of the stolen sacrificial horse. They were all turned into ashes as per the view of Paramacharya, the great sage of Kalchi, that was in California, Kapilaranyam. And then the sons couldn't turn back, and then he sends his other son Asamanjas. True to his name, he was an Asamanjas. Then goes his son called as Amshuman. Later, after many generations, comes Bhagiratha, who wants to give emancipation to the ashes, the heap of ashes who were his ancestors, and then brings Ganga, who is later called Bhagirathi. All that is mentioned in Srimad Ramayana. They come across a beautiful place in Bihar, which is called Siddhashramam. That was the place where Vamana was born as Upendra to Aditi and Kashyapa, and later went to the Yajnavatika of Bali Chakravarti, who was performing Yajnam or at the banks of river Narmada in a kshetram called Bhrugukacham, which is today called Bharuch in Gujarat. Alle, Kerala malle Bali Chakravarti. Onathinte divasam Keralathinte vannallu. As per Bhagavatam, the avataram happened in Bihar and went to Gujarat. But why is it mentioned as Onam for Bali Chakravarti? Because the sages who lived in a kshetram called Trikkarkarai, north of Ernakulam, wanted to have an action replay of that avataram. And the Lord played that avataram again for their satisfaction. So it is called as Vamana Kshetram. Well, after Siddhashrama Charitram, he does mention about Kumara Sambhavam. Kumara Sambhavam, you may be wondering, is of Kalidasa. Even before Kalidasa's beautiful work, Astyuttarasyam dishi devatatma himalayo nama nagadhiraja purva paro toyanidhi vigahya sthitah prithivya iva manadandaha. You should once in your life read Kalidasa's works. You will know what kind of poetry he came up with. They were all very cognizant of the geography around them. In Kumarasambhavam, when the flag flutters high, he says the silk is like Chinam Shukaihi. Chinam Shukaihi means China silk. So we think that people here in Bharatadesham at one point in time did not know about other countries. Wrong. In Ramayanam, while Vasishtha was fighting with Kaushika, who was the erstwhile, who later becomes Vishwamitra, to fight Vasishtha, Vishwamitra's, Kaushika's army, he asks Shabala, his cow, to gather army from other regions. So they bring Pallavas. Pallavas were the army from Iran. Mlechas came from the northern European side. Then Yavanas came from Greece. There were some Mongols also who were brought. All this is there in Ramayana. Well, all these charitrams were mentioned one after the other by Vishwamitra to Rama. Vedanta Deshika states, Kushika Sutta Katitha Vidita Nava Vividha Kata. What does Nava mean in Sanskrit? 9. He mentioned 9 stories. What does the other word for Nava mean? Modern, new. Which means Vishwamitra narrated the stories or charitrams or aitihyams to Rama in a modern way. See, narration or storytelling should always be contemporary and relatable. That is my opinion and also the opinion of great acharyas like even Nampillai. Some people, when I began the role of an Upanyasaka, some people said, Anantharama Dikshidhar ipdi solla maatare. 1960 la varvanadadnala ipdi sollale. Now I don't get such comments. They either get used to mine or they chuck me out. In my humble opinion, narration should always be relatable. It should not be something, come down, be grounded. So, all these kathas were narrated and then he was taken to the Yajnavatika. In the Yajnavatika, Vishwamitra was performing a yajnam. See, most words that we use today, we are forced or coaxed to use English translations for them. But at times, they don't do justice to the original word. I am not talking just because Sanskritam is one great language. For any language, for that matter. See, we refer any book you see, Bhagavad Gita's translation, wherever Krishna mentions Atma, there will be one word soul. Soul is not Atma. Apnoti iti Atma. That which attains what it wishes to attain. Hence it is called Atma. Brahmavit apnoti param. If the Atma decides that it has to reach the Supreme so that it is never born again, it attains that. So it is called Atma. I don't know whether the word soul has that meaning in it. Soul means something which is very centric, which is very important. For that matter, even Shariram is important. See, Sanatana Dharma, though it distinguishes Atma from the body, Shariram, it doesn't say Shariram is bad. Without Shariram, Paropakarartham idam Shariram. How will you help others if there is no body? Atma cannot survive by itself, either be it in Sukshma Dasha or Sthula Dasha. It needs a body. So, body can also be treated as soul if soul's meaning is centric. So it is better even in English discourses or writings, we keep certain words in its original language. Let people understand. Krishna mentions of Atma. Why should you forcefully write that as soul? Like how, certain words have become very common in the Western world as well. Guru, mantra, correct? So now you use Atma also. So certain words, yajnam. What is yajnam? Immediately they say sacrifice. Yajnam is not sacrifice. See, there are many words. For example, homam, havanam, yajnam, savanam. So many words. Dinakaran vayatilakam divyagadhi suta savana dinakaran vayatilakam. He was born in the lineage of Dinakaran. Dinakara and Divakara. Dinakara, Kulakamala, Divakara. In Tamil Nadu, these names will bring Dinakara and Divakara. Dinakaran Vayatilakam. He went and protected the savana, the sacrifice of Kaushika, Vishwamitra. Who was Kaushika? The son of Gadi. Divya Gadhi Suta Savana Vanarajita Subahu Mukhavadam. If you are singing, you have to forcefully put that Vadham next to Subahu. Vanarajita Subahu Mukha. Abdi Nirtuta. You see what will be the disaster? Vadham Ahalya. In the Ramayana that we learn, Ahalya was not killed. Dinakaran Vayatilakam Divyagadhi Suta Savana Vanarajita Subahu Mukhavadham Ahalya Pavanam. You should take that Pavanam to Ahalya. Now, the yajna was performed by Vishwamitra. Though he had all the powers, as a rishi he could not fight and do the yajna both together. So he brought the kshatriya there. Originally Vishwamitra was a kshatriya. He was a kshatriya turned brahmana. Brahmana turned kshatriya. There was one more person in his kulam called Parashurama. He was born as brahmana, he lived like a kshatriya. Kaushika was born a kshatriya and turned brahmana. How is it, sir? If he is born a brahmana, he has to be a brahmana, right? It is like the sorting hat of Harry Potter. He was, based on his skills, he had to be in Sarsa Slytherin. But he chose to be from Gryffindor, correct? So that sorting hat will take your opinion also. Likewise, even Varnashramam will take your choice also. So Vishwamitra, while he was performing the yajna, Rama asked Lakshmana to stand in one place and he went around the yajna vatika. See, generally when a yajna is performed, the shape of the yajna kundam, the vedika, is very, very important. In certain places it will be circular. In certain places it will be square. In certain places it has to be semicircle. And there is a count as to how many bricks you have to keep. There is a science behind that yajna. And then there will be one person who sings the Rigvedic verses. Another person has to sing the Samaganam, Udgata, Advaryu. So there will be positions in yajna. And then finally the Havis has to be given to the Devata or the Devatas. So in the process, there should be no adulteration in the ingredients used. So these Rakshasas called Subahu and Maricha used to mix blood of animals along with the Havis and used to keep it. So every time Vishwamitra intended to perform the yajna, it will fail. So he thought, let me perform the yajna and let someone protect the yajna. So he brought Lakshmana, who stood in one place like a constant, and Rama went around like the variable. In algebra we have x is equal to 5. 5 is constant and x is variable, right? So he went around. Tyagaraja mentions this. I am sure a lot of you will be conversant with Carnatic music. Pasitala mande muniyaga munani bahu parakrama munu nerungana rakasha shivadana bhakta janavana pasitala mande muniyaga muni. So this particular yajna which was performed by the munis, that was protected. As Rama went around, Subahu and Maricha came. With one astram, he killed Subahu. With the other astram, he should have killed Maricha. But Rama became suddenly magnanimous and benevolent, and he thought, let me drive him away. He drove him away from Uttar Pradesh and he went and fell near Tamil Nadu, Dramida Desha. So they were all related to Ravana. Ravana had here and there established cantonments. One was called Janasthana near Nagpur. His brothers were stationed there, Khara, Dushana and Trishiras. Trishiras was later a person who went and performed tapas in a mountain by the banks of river Kaveri. Since Trishiras performed penance on that mountain, it is called Trishiragiri. Since this place has Trishiragiri, it later became Tiruchirappalli. So if you know this Shiva Kshetram called as Tayumanavar, Matrubhutam, Shri Matrubhutam Trishiragirinatham Kridi Sugandhi Kundalaba Sametam. So they were all stationed in different places. Maricha came and fell in Tamil Nadu, which is Dravida Desham. So at that point in time comes the second verse of Gayatri Ramayanam. Yesterday I spoke about verse number 1, Tapaswadhyaya Niratam Ta. The second verse is the 1001th verse. Sahatva Rakshasan Sarvan Yajnagnan Raghunandanaha Rishibhi Pujita Samyak Yathendro Vijayipura. Like how